Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Animation Conversation, the podcast that takes you on a magical journey through the world of animation. On this exciting show, we have two incredible hosts who will be your guides through this animated wonderland. First up, we have the one and only Rusty, a walking encyclopedia of animation knowledge with a passion for all things cel-shaded and computer-generated. And let's not forget about our second host, the fabulous F, your go-to guru for hand-drawn classics, stop-motion wonders, and everything in between. Together, Rusty and F will bring you the latest news, fascinating interviews, and captivating discussions about the art of animation. From the golden age of Disney to the cutting-edge techniques of Pixar, from Japanese anime to European masterpieces, Animation Conversation is your ultimate destination for all things animated. Whether you're an avid fan, a budding artist, or simply curious about the magic behind the pixels, this podcast will ignite your imagination and keep you entertained. So sit back, relax, and get ready to embark on an extraordinary journey through the colorful realms of animated storytelling. Animation Conversation starts now!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Animation Conversation. I'm Rusty and I'm here with, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, it's your old pal F.
F, here we go, man. So,
what's up, party people?
So we've got a show that just aired here recently by Cartoon Network legend Genndy Tartakovsky. Sorry, yeah, Genndy Tartakovsky. That's a tongue twister. So there's a new show that he's done. So for those of you that aren't familiar with him, which you will be familiar with his work, I'm sure. So it's Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Primal. Those are the three, and then Clone Wars. Those are like the four that just are like come to my mind the quickest. And he also worked on Two Stupid Dogs with our guest Rob Renzetti that we had a couple weeks ago. So the new show that he's done,
it was Genndy, Rob Renzetti, and Craig McCracken were kind of an unstoppable triumvirate for that whole Cartoon Network. As Rob put it, not me. Cal Arts Mafia in the late '90s and early aughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, those guys really were instrumental in kind of rebooting people's interest in that kind of Cartoon Network Hanna-Barbera style cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they were. It was the cartoons of my generation for sure. I grew up in the in the '90s, so the late '90s when all these shows were coming. The mid '90s, all of the Genndy shows, all of Rob shows, all of Craig shows. So the show that we're going to be discussing is it's a 20-year project of Genndy's from everything that I've read and understood. So he tried to sell it for over 20 years and get this show out there, and it just never was the right time. And he went back to the drawing board over and over again and modified it and did things to try to sell it, and eventually it gets picked up. So the first I ever heard about it was actually in 2020, 2021, somewhere around there, when they had announced that it was going to be in production and that they were going to go ahead and green light it and go with it. And lo and behold, 2023, we finally get the release of it, and I like the new style of how they're releasing shows. So I didn't actually catch it on Adult Swim. I caught it on YouTube, on Adult Swim's YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen it, you could go catch the first episode on the Adult Swim YouTube channel there. So the show we're talking about is Unicorn Warriors Eternal.
Yeah.
So it's a good one. I really enjoyed it. I watched it twice, and I usually don't watch right away. I'll watch a show over and over again, but usually I don't watch the first episode, multiple times in a row. But I'm going to watch it again. It was so good. I really liked it.
Wow. Well, now I've been anxious this whole time to get your take on it, because I did that thing that veterans of the industry have time and time again bemoaned as sort of our fate. Is when you've been in the industry for a long time, first of all, when you spend your whole day making cartoons, the last thing you want to do at the end of a day
absolutely
is watch more cartoons. So whenever something new comes out, even if it's by someone who's a friend of mine, or something that I'm tangentially associated with in some way, I'm just not usually that interested in watching it, because, like I say, the best case scenario, I'm gonna steal from a contemporary of mine who said this. When you're in the industry and you're watching a new show, there are sort of two scenarios that can occur. You can watch it and go, "Oh my gosh, they screwed this up. They've done this all wrong, and I hate it." Or, "Wow, this is really great. How come nobody asked me to be on it?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in Genndy's case, this is one of the occasions where I can't hold anything against Genndy, because not only have he and I never worked together, and this is weird because I'm really good friends with Rob Renzetti. I'm at least halfway decent acquaintances with Craig McCracken. I don't believe I've ever so much as met Genndy Tartakovsky.
Oh, wow.
Which again is weird because we have like a million mutual friends.
Yeah.
I've seen him at parties and stuff like that, but I've never said, "Hello, Genndy, I'm John Fountain, blah, blah, blah." So yeah. So in this case, this was one of those rare occasions where I could sit down and watch it, and there was no sort of immediate, like, "I'm going to like this because this is my pal."
Yeah.
So I did, and of course it's a gorgeous looking show, but I still found myself going, am I judging this the way I would judge it if I weren't in the animation industry? Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing from people like you, just across the board, that you all love it, correct?
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like, not only is it beautifully animated, the direction they went with the steampunk stuff, and I'm a really big, I like history, and the fact that they inject this historical element into it, it allows, and that's one of the things that Genndy said in one of the interviews that I read, was that he kind of formats it this way, in this historical way, because if the show begins to get stale in this time frame, he could completely just boom. All right, well, we go to the future, or we go back in time, or
right.
He could just shift to different points in time to keep the show fresh and to keep it going, and essentially, shows all end, but with the style that he's done, he could come up with an infinite number of stories to tell. Whether the show lasts that long or not is to be seen yet. But so from what I understood, when he was pitching it, he was trying to pitch it as a 4-season story to try to get it sold and everything. But and that was one of the things that he had said too. It was so, if it did get a little stale, they could change time zones and stuff, jump from time zone to time zone. One of the things that I really liked a lot about it too was the sounds. The guy, the audio guy, I can't remember his name. I had it pulled up here, but whoever did the audio for it, it was just phenomenal. I just really appreciated all the sounds. I like the steampunk robot Copernicus. I like all the sounds he makes, his little buzzes and whirs. And there's actually a Polygon article that where they talk about his sounds, and the writers, the beeps and boops all have script that goes with it. So it's all beeps and boops that we hear, but the writer, as they were writing it, it's actual dialogue with the beeps and boops. So I thought that was really, really cool. And I guess maybe one day we'll get to know what they're saying through subtitles or whatever. Maybe the subtitles will say something other than beeps and boops. I didn't really pay attention to that. I actually watched it with subtitles, but I didn't notice if they did dialogue for him. But I thought that was neat too. Again, it's it's not the same kind of like 2D feel from like Samurai Jack and Primal and Dexter's Lab. It's very, I don't know, it's almost movie like you're watching a production that's meant to be an hour and 35 minutes long. It's almost like it's not meant for TV. It's almost too good for television, almost in my mind. And I don't know, it was really good. And to be on Adult Swim as well, I thought that was interesting that the show gets picked up for an adult audience or a teenage, a teenage audience or an older audience. which I found that pretty interesting too. I've yet to see why it was targeted for that, but I guess it is a little darker show. There's a little darker elements. The funeral scene and everything is a little darker, and then taking over the young girl, the teenage girl that's getting married or whatever, taking over her body to become Melinda and all that. So I guess there's a few things I could see why it is a little dark, but I really like it. I don't know. I love it.
Probably falls under one of those situations where they, Cartoon Network, which is Adult Swim, they're
William Street, all that,
Yeah, I think it was probably one of those occasions where they probably asked Genndy, what do you want to do? And the thing about doing something for Adult Swim, you could, if somebody said to me, hey, we want you to do something for Adult Swim, I would enthusiastically do it, but I would still probably keep it fairly PG-13. But that's the thing. When you're doing something for Adult Swim, you just don't have to worry. You don't have to, you can choose to be a little more violent or a little more sophisticated or a little more graphic than you would if you were specifically making it for Cartoon Network, because Cartoon Network is still sort of a brand for kids, and rightfully so. Whereas if it's on Adult Swim, that sort of says to parents, hey, this may or may not be appropriate for your kid, depending on what it is they're like. But that's, you mentioned this, and I think this has been true of Genndy's work for a really long time. And again, I can say this with all objectivity because he's not a friend of mine. His style is extremely cinematic. Everything he does, Dexter's Laboratory was probably the most TV-centric thing he's ever done. Once he moved past Dexter's Lab and he did Samurai Jack and then the Clone Wars and then Primal and now this, it all is very cinematic and it's very, very sophisticated in its visual storytelling. So it looks like it should be on a movie screen. And I know Genndy has directed, I mean, didn't he direct Hotel Transylvania, at least the first one?
Yes, he did. I think he did the entire series, honestly. I think he was involved in the whole series.
And that's a thing. I mean, I've never seen those movies, but I people who like them really like them a lot, and I have no doubt that he did a great job directing those.
I think a lot of it,
what I would call cinematic movies.
Yeah, not at all.
Felt like Genndy was one of those few people who is sort of built for feature films, and I'm surprised that nobody has tapped him to really do something along those lines yet. I'm thinking in terms of Brad Bird, who was a director on The Simpsons and a few other things, and then went on to direct The Iron Giant and then The Incredibles, and then he went on to direct Mission Impossible. I don't know. I think it was either 3 or 4.
Iron Giant came out on my birthday in the year, I think it was 1999. August 6th, I remember, was when that movie was released. I loved that movie. Vin Diesel, that's a great movie.
Yeah. Fun fact, August 6th is my birthday, so I kept a poster from that because it says right on it,
August 6th is your birthday.
Yeah. And
August 6th is my birthday.
Oh, really?
That's what I was saying. The movie was released on my birthday on August the 6th.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow,
that is absolutely insane. Wow.
We got to do a birthday show.
Yeah, we have to do a birthday show. That is nuts. I've never met anybody with my birthday ever. That is crazy.
To the listeners who are
nuts.
New to this show, Rusty and I don't know each other that well.
At all. Not very well at all. And then we just found out we have the same birthday. That's nuts.
That has to be a thing for this show. We have to do a special birthday show.
Yeah, we have to. That's crazy. I can't believe that we have the same birthday. That is nuts.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, Brad Bird went on to direct, a Mission Impossible movie, and rightfully so. And that's why I say I think Genndy Tartakovsky is one of those people that eventually someone's going to go, hey, wait a minute, we got to let this guy direct, a real cinematic feature film, because, when you watch Unicorn Warriors Eternal or for that matter, anything he's done since Dexter's Lab.
Absolutely. It's cinematic.
This is a guy who knows his business.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. Samurai Jack too, and that's what that's what this kind of reminds me of. There's elements of this that kind of remind me a little bit of some Samurai Jack stuff, but it's next level with the animation. It is definitely it's definitely the next generation of animation for sure.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see how the show develops as he goes along, and I hope we get lots of great merchandise to buy because I love merch. I hope we get some cool merch. I hope we get a movie out of it. You know, I really do. I really see this as being something that could be a movie, and I want to see a feature length film from Genndy, from the mind of Genndy, not him directing somebody else's stuff, but I want to see his feature film, like debut animation film.
Well, it's funny because one of the things it immediately reminded me of as I watched it was it had a slight feel to it of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, absolutely,
which, if you ever saw the movie, then you're aware that it's a horrible movie. Like it's
Sean Connery.
It's a garbage movie, but the graphic novels are positively amazing. Like if you're a fan of old literary characters and that sort of thing, you absolutely must read the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And so since the original sort of live action version adaptation of that graphic novel was such a flop, and that was over 20 years ago now, it struck me as I'm watching Unicorn Warriors Eternal, it's like, ooh, Genndy would be a great person to have direct a feature film version of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Like he would be tailor made for something like that.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see. Actually, that would be a really good animated movie. I would definitely watch that twice in theaters. I don't really go to the theaters a lot anymore, but if I do, it's a movie I'm going to watch more than once.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's now what's funny about this is, again, you mentioned Samurai Jack. What's kind of what's funny is Samurai Jack came along just as, being able to do things digitally got significantly easier. Like you could be a lot more ambitious with your animation. And so Samurai Jack really sort of pushed those boundaries. But there were still a fair amount of limitations in what you could or couldn't do with, 2D animation without it looking like, super flash puppety style rigged animation. Whereas now, the ability to combine rigged animation with traditional animation with 3D animation, the ability to combine all those elements have really just sort of, I think, cut him loose. And I think this show, sort of epitomizes that. But what, it's interesting. You'd mentioned before that he's had this idea for like 20 years and he just now got the the go ahead to do it. It strikes me as really just kind of hilarious because I mean, no matter how much you are not into Genndy's work personally, people notice his stuff. Like the Clone Wars series got made because George Lucas saw Samurai Jack and said, "This is really awesome looking."
Yeah, and he picked the right guy for it. The Clone Wars was beautiful. Yeah, it was great. Right. It was amazing. Well,
and because the Clone Wars shorts that Genndy did were so successful, that led to the Clone Wars CGI show.
Mm.
So which, I mean, I don't feel like a lot of people give Genndy nearly enough credit for the fact that it launched that whole empire. Because, I mean, the Clone Wars CGI show, which was a great show, like
amazing. It reinvigorated my hope for the Star Wars franchise as a whole at that point, because I wasn't like after it was right after they did the 1, 2, and 3 in the 90s and 2000s is right around the time that right after all that is when the Clone Wars animation came out, and I really didn't like Jar Jar. Like Jar Jar Binks is one of my favorite characters, but I thought for a movie he was terrible. Like it was just bad for a movie. He's funny and he's like comic relief, but I really didn't like those three that much. And then when they came with the Clone War, I was like, oh, okay, hope is restored.
Well, what's funny is between Genndy's Clone Wars and then the Clone Wars that came after it, the two things, if you watch them in conjunction with the prequel trilogies, I feel like they make the prequel trilogies more palatable.
Absolutely.
Like if you weren't a fan of the prequel trilogy, but then you also watch, the Clone Wars, both Genndy's and the CGI version, you find yourself thinking, oh, wow, this sort of explains that. And therefore, see, we're going to have to do a whole show someday where you let me do nothing but talk about Star Wars, because that's kind of my...
We could do that. We could do a Star Wars show.
Kind of my jam. And I'm one of the few people you will ever talk to who will vehemently express. I love the prequels, I love the sequels, and I love the original. Now, the original trilogy, nothing will ever replace that for me.
Yeah,
Nothing
absolutely.
can ever outdo those. But I love all three trilogies. But anyway, going back to Genndy, it's funny because again, his work always stands out as exceptional, and yet it took him 20 years for someone to say, "Okay, we'll make this show." You would think that with all of the mojo he had behind him, he'd have been able to get this thing made a million years ago. And this sort of speaks to people kind of have the impression that once you've had a hit, and he's had 3-4 hits by now.
Absolutely.
Once you have a hit show, you can just write your own ticket and do whatever you want. But that is absolutely not the case. This show is proof positive of that. It took him 20 years for someone to greenlight this show. And again, whether you personally like the show or not, you can't look at it and go, "Oh, well, this is a no-brainer. Of course, this should have been on the air ages ago."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when you watch it and see that, yeah, but then again, like you said, it kind of speaks to the industry and how the industry itself operates. If it's not something that they can see dollar signs on immediately, then it's not something that they're going to bite or grab up, no matter how good of a story it may be. If it's not, if it doesn't make fiscal sense, then they're not really too worried about the artistic part of it all. It's all the dollars and cents part that they worry the most about, of course.
Yeah, and again, it just whenever and that's something, again, if you are talking to someone who has an idea to pitch or has an ambition to make something and get it out there, it just goes to show, you can be Genndy Tartakovsky, you can be Craig McCracken. I mean, Craig McCracken, who's a direct contemporary of Genndy's. I mean, he had success after success, and then he did Kid Cosmic, which is another show on Netflix. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and it's really well done. Rob Renzetti was involved with that as well. Just an absolutely exceptional show, and yet that has not been picked up, and instead he's going back to do Powerpuff Girls. Which is not a terrible thing. But again, it just goes to show it doesn't matter how successful you are. If you're known for one thing, that's what you're known for. And it's a shame because I could make the argument that Kid Cosmic is a show deserving of at least as much success as Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I haven't seen that one yet. That's on my list to watch. I got that on my watch list.
Even if you don't like the story, it's so gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it. That's on my watch list. And that's another thing about this show that I like too, is that I really didn't recognize any of the voice actors. And they're so I really like when they give an opportunity for fresh voices to come into the industry. But one thing that I really like is that they are unrecognizable. So I'm not listening to the voice thinking about every other show they've been in. Because I have a bad habit of when I hear somebody's voice in a show, trying to pinpoint every show that I've heard that voice, especially for voice actors and actresses and things like that. So I really did like that they have like that fresh approach to the voice, the voices and stuff, like unrecognizable voices. I think more shows should do that. More shows should be, given opportunities to new voices. Not that the old voices don't deserve work and deserve jobs too, but it's good to hear fresh voices on shows and stuff like that, especially when it's a brand new IP like Unicorn, Warriors. And that's one thing I liked about it. But again, I'm going back to the art. The art is number one for me, and the sound is like they're the top two. Really, it's the steampunk stuff. I really like the steampunk. I really like when you have like the technology thing where it's all it's Victorian steampunk technology where you have the airships floating, and then you have like the steampunk monorail and things like that. I really like that artistic creativity with historical approach to it. And I guess my favorite character so far it's got to be Copernicus. I really like Copernicus. Copernicus is probably my favorite, and that's because you see the most. I mean, you see him more throughout the first 2 episodes that they've aired so far than you see any other character, really, because he's the main focal point of the story. Like, as it's developing, he's the guy that's putting these souls into these teenagers, and he's the one that's like the keeper of the keeper of the light, I guess, if you will, against this evil force. So I really liked him. He's probably my favorite character. I really the one thing that I want to see for this show is I really hope that they don't just give it one and done like with Symbiotic Titans. I really hope they give it a chance to stretch its legs and walk, because I think it's going to be a slow burn for some people, this show, and it's not necessarily a slow burn because it's a bad show or anything. It's a slow burn because there's not a lot of dialogue in the first 2 episodes, and same with Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack didn't have very much dialogue in it either. It's a lot of action, and some kids don't have the attention span, or even adults don't have the attention span if they're not being talked to, or have dialogue to listen to along with the show. So I just hope they give it its due. I want to see it run. I want to see it run.
That is a major risk that he's taking on his part, and I agree with you. And it really is kind of a tragedy. It's it's become a cliche to talk about how kids don't have an attention span, but honestly, it really is, because so much of what can make a show like that really, really impactful is the slow burn. That's a perfect term for it, because my wife and I are finally binging on the final season of Better Call Saul, and for the first 4 episodes. And we both love the show, but for the first 4 episodes, she's been like, okay, come on. And she was almost ready to quit. But then by the 5th episode, I won't, spoil it, but all hell breaks loose. And then it was that much more satisfying when you do have that slow burn, and I hope they give him the opportunity to do this, because if anyone can pull that off, it's him. And again, that's the thing. I feel like it's this calamitous loss that a lot of viewers don't have the patience to sit through that slow buildup, because it's that contrast that really makes something compelling. And I get the impression that that's always what he's trying to do. He's always trying to push that envelope in that regard. And I want him to be rewarded for it, because I want more stuff like that,
Yeah, absolutely. I want him to be rewarded for it too. He's proven his mettle in the industry. He's got hit shows. He's got shows that are household acclaimed names, not just nationally but internationally as well. I feel like to not let this show. They already did it to him one time with Symbiotic Titans. I feel like. Why would you do it to him twice? I feel like if he gets, you burn him twice, is he going to want to create a show for you ever again? Is he going to want to work on any of your projects at your studio ever again? I feel like I know that's how the industry works, but I don't know, personally, me, if I was in the industry like that and you let me run all these shows that have been successful, and then I run one and you cancel it after a season, and I do it again, and I put all this energy, especially a 20-year project. He put 20 years of his life into trying to get this thing up and running, and now it's here. I really hope that they do let it run for a little bit longer than that.
Well, again, whenever you talk about there's a couple things you have to keep in mind. The they that are the folks who make decisions like that, if you look to any branch of the entertainment industry, you find out that this is kind of ubiquitous. The they is always changing. When I had a development deal at Warner Brothers for 2 years, and for the entirety of that time, they was super hyped about my project, and they were the ones who were saying, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be the next Harry Potter. This is going to be huge. This is going to be huge." And then all at once, they switched from one group of people to another group of people, and it had nothing to do with me, and it certainly had nothing to do with my show. It had to do with, okay, these are the end of the year figures. who did good and who didn't, and then out of nowhere, a whole bunch of executives get laid off and replaced with new executives. And the minute new executives replace old ones, the new ones always want to distance themselves from anything that the old ones were attached to, no matter how good they were. So, and if that happened to me, who's not nearly as successful as Genndy Tartakovsky, just imagine the number of times he's probably been through it. And same with Craig McCracken, same with anybody else who's tried to sell a show.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the people making the decisions, Symbionic Titan may have enjoyed the love and appreciation of a whole group of people before it got canceled because that group of people was replaced. And there's turning wheels like that all the time, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine the frustration on that, especially, when you've been told, hey, yeah, this great, we're working on it, it's in the wheel, we're moving with it, and then boom, somebody else comes in and changes the entire script and plan that was already set. Before we wrap this up, is there anything that you want to discuss about the animation stuff that you have going on? I know that y'all are ramping up a little bit more with that. I know you've made a couple announcements on your Twitter.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to save the details for potentially devote an episode of the show to it. But
for sure, we can do that.
Suffice it to say, everyone should absolutely, definitely visit my YouTube channel, Fountain Cartoons. At least I think that's my YouTube channel, isn't it? Anyway, if you go to Fountain Cartoon, at Fountain Cartoon on Twitter, that's where you're going to see all the updates. But it does tie into what we're talking about. This whole business of executives making decisions and executives being fired and new ones coming in and changing stuff, and the reality of that is giving birth to a whole new sort of generation of creators who just want to work outside that system. And just to tease a little bit, that's what I've been working on, and that's what I'm going to be telling you more about as the weeks go on. So and by the way, it's interesting to me that that Adult Swim premiered his show on YouTube, and that's where I saw it too. And I am of the opinion that YouTube is going to be sort of a new major player in all of this, because you can just create content directly and stick it up there, and you don't have to worry about 20 other people telling you why you did everything wrong. So I'm sort of I'm going in that direction myself. So if you go to YouTube and look up Fountain's Pen Cartoons, my channel in the upcoming months is going to have very exciting stuff coming up on it. So,
well, there you go. You heard it here first from F. A lot of cartoons coming for everybody. A lot of good animation in the works. So you can check us all out. We're going to be at Animation Convo. That's on Instagram and Twitter. I really hope that you enjoyed our conversation today. I hope that you enjoyed all the conversations we have, and we appreciate you guys coming back time and time again. So that was another episode of the Animation Convo. I'm Rusty, and you are...
This is your old pal F. Zigga Zigga Ah, party people.
Zigga Zigga Ah. You could find other great shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Y'all go over there and check out Bois, King of the Hill podcast. There's also Poltergals. That's a Poltergeist podcast. Y'all go check that out too. We'd appreciate that. And check out Bloody Happy Hour. A lot of great stuff coming from those gals too. So thank y'all so much for staying with us. And next time.
And that brings us to the end of another incredible episode of Animation Conversation. We hope you enjoyed this animated adventure as much as we did. Remember, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels or through good old-fashioned email. We value your input and want to make Animation Conversation a podcast that resonates with animation lovers like you. Our Instagram and Twitter are @AnimationConvo. Our YouTube is @AnimationConversation. Our email is theanimationconvo@gmail.com. Before we say our final goodbyes, we want to remind you to stay animated. Keep exploring, appreciating, and sharing the magic of animation with others. Let your imagination soar and let the world of animated wonders continue to inspire and captivate you. Thank you once again for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, this is Wubcake, signing off for Animation Conversation. Keep watching, keep dreaming, and keep the animation conversation alive.